Okay. Hi, everybody. This is day 1422 days since Richard was murdered on the Fort Bliss footprint, and we still don't have his body, but we're getting closer. We're getting closer. And, I want to begin by saying thank you so much. Let me make sure I'm live and you can hear me. Oh, yeah. Okay. It's all working. Um, so, first of all, let me just say thank you so much for going to the article and our numbers. The article that came out at elpasonews.org. Thank you so much for responding to that. The feedback that I've gotten is wonderful. Um, because I think people are looking at that article and what Martin Paredes did as not just for this case, but for the criminal law enforcement, um, the benefit of the criminal law enforcement in El Paso. Because if we have the likes of Bob Moore and El Paso Matters and Angela Kachurga, um, tampering with narratives, tampering with the minds of people, swaying their minds with false information, with, being fake news, bringing in unreliable sources, right? Letting unreliable sources. You have to understand, Leilani Hart was their unreliable source. Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia was their unreliable source. And with KTSM, Danae Katzen was their unreliable source. Of course, they had to keep her anonymous because everybody would know. Everybody would know. And now it makes sense why they had to keep her so anonymous, right? Put her in the black, black her out, right? Her profile. So it makes perfect sense because these three are constantly peddling false evidence, false testimonies, false, they're peddling lies. That's what they're doing. And, so for KTSM, who is, very close, uh, always repeating what Bob Moore, not 100%, but a lot of times they're always using what Bob Moore puts out. And Bob Moore using unreliable sources to twist and turn the narrative, the stories, and then to even make changes and not even notify the public. And this is so unethical in journalism. And not to even, and you read it in that article, and I'm very grateful that he highlighted it. An ethical journalist like Martin Paredes highlighted this in his article, that we had attempted to contact Bob Moore over and over and over again, and we sent him evidence, and there was no response. And he still put out a defamatory, a very badly done article on our son's death. On our son's death. So he's just like really, just such a terrible person. Such a terrible person. Not a good representative for El Paso Matters and not for El Paso Community Foundation. And yet, something is wrong because they like him. They pay him. They keep him in there. And, so it tells you that this has a broader political agenda. And this was also mentioned in the article, that this proves that this is a political agenda, which is not allowed when you have a tax-free status with the IRS, right? They want their cake and eat it too. They want their tax-free status, but they want to be political. They want to be political attack machine. And, this is not ethical, and it does not follow the laws of the IRS when you get a 501c3 status. And so, that he is under investigation. El Paso Matters is under investigation is absolutely true. We can corroborate that he is under investigation by the state and by federal jurisdictions. And this is very, very important for people to know, because his unethical journalism has come back against him. And that's good news, because the criminal justice system has been harmed by him. Because when you have false information in major publications that are regularly used in the court of law, right? They're regularly used because they're time-stamped. And if you tamper with the timestamps like Bill Hicks did, that's why Bill Hicks is a usurper, right? Because and that makes him a criminal, because he tampered with official records, official documents. But with Bob Moore, so the two of them, they work in conjunction, and they're both tamperers. They tamper with our system. They tamper with our justice system. They manipulate and tamper with elections. They manipulate and tamper with public opinion, right? Which in turn works politically. And by doing that, they hurt so many people, because then you have false information everywhere and false tamper timestamps. And how can you get justice in the courts if you don't have reliable information? And so this is a very, very important story. I hope that you read through it and share it and understand how important it is, because, we have 17 unethical points that we made, that we sent to him. And that is, they're strong points, y'all. They're very strong points. And that's kind of unheard of in a cease and desist. But we could not pick one over the other. All 17 are egregious. All 17 are true. We couldn't just pick what normal people do, what normally you do in a cease and desist, 4 or 5 points, because they're all equally egregious. And so we insisted that those points stay in our cease and desist. And so I'm glad that Martin Paredes picked up on that, because this is very abnormal. You can go in and Google it, or search it on whatever search engine you have. How many points does a normal cease and desist have? 3 to 5, 3 to 6, whatever. But ours had 17. 17. Because this is our family. This is our son's death. This is our son's character. This is a soldier from Fort Bliss. This is almost 4 years of very hard work to get to drive the Army to declare Richard the truth, that he is dead, that he has been murdered, because we have overwhelming beyond a reasonable doubt evidence that he has been murdered. And so they had to look at that evidence. They had to look at that evidence and they had to make a declaration. And there's a story around that too. Because they absolutely did not pick it out of the hat. They had to review it, and it took them a long time. And they had no other choice after looking at the evidence. And so now we have a time of working to get accountability, working to get those that are murderers off the street, and send a very loud message that inside jobs, that retaliation against whistleblowers is not tolerated. So, and a path forward for all those other families that have suffered. And for the media, they need to be very, very careful when they get a story from Bob Moore or El Paso Matters. I would scrutinize it because there's a huge chance it's going to be junk. It's going to be trash. It's going to be a false narrative. It's going to be using unreliable sources like Leilani Hart, a convicted criminal. And of course, the mother of Richard's platoon leader, the prime suspect in the murder of our son. They might use Danae Katzen, right? I mean, look at the way the media handled Danae Katzen's arrest the other day. With like little kitty gloves, and she was out probably within an hour of being arrested. And of course, Jonathan Ambrose, her husband, who's also a very interesting person and has a severe, the sister reached out to us to inform us that he has a severe mental condition. It kind of sounded like the same like Patrick Crucius. But, something else is going on there. And we have put together so much evidence, and what screams at us is the commonalities. And the commonalities are the funeral business, mortuary affairs, and the funeral business, and everything that goes around the funeral business, autopsies, this protection of the funeral business. Because we don't understand how Mario Raskin Ortiz can be allowed to be in his position. He's illegal. He's illegal. And every remains, every body, physical body that he touches is botched. Legally, it's botched because he's unqualified and he is illegally in this country. The last time I heard. And I don't think with a violated visa and waiver that he can easily get permission to be legally in this country. But Who knows, right? So why Veronica Escobar approved him and has supported him, why Joanne Bernal, the county attorney, approved him and supported him, is a question that El Pasoans need to ask, because every case, everybody, that includes the Walmart mass shooting victims, every one of those victims was handled by Mario Raskin Ortiz, I've been told. He handled those. Just about all of them. Should I say just about all of them? Just to be safe? Seemingly, apparently. And every one of them then has a botched manner and cause of death. Because he is the judge that judges the manner and cause of death. He makes that determination. He makes that judgment. It's a big job. And he has botched it all. And there is no wonder, because we weren't the first ones to point this out. This has been being pointed out since 2014. Joanne Bernal has been notified. Veronica Escobar has been notified over and over again. When other prominent people died and were brought to El Paso, absolutely, they were not notified. Mario Raskin Ortiz cannot go near that body. He will be arrested because he will botch that case. Because when you're unqualified, you automatically botch the case. You can't have a hamburger, a chef come in and be a doctor, right? You can't do that. It's different professions. And he's not qualified. So there is something going on, but he's allowed. He has continued, even with our multiple letters. Multiple letters. He is allowed to continue in that position. And of course, Bill Hicks is a usurper of the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office. But what you might not know is that he was in the funeral business. He was representing Purchase Funeral Homes, the funeral homes that got most of the bodies of the Walmart mass shooting, which made him have a conflict of interest. He should never have been appointed. And he botched the appointment, didn't he? He botched the appointment, and absolutely, with the conflict of interest, he automatically botches the Walmart mass shooting case, because that's why I think he had to hire Loretta Lynn Hewitt. But then she saw what was going on, that it was being politicized, and that they were stopping the case from going forward, and she resigned in protest. And that was written by another ethical journalist. There are ethical journalists out there. Bob Moore is just not one of them, and neither is Angela Kachurga. They are not they're unethical, and they're heartless. Because to be an unethical journalist, you have to be absolutely heartless. So all of their talk is just like in Little Dorrit. What is his name? There's a character in Little Dorrit. It's a book by Charles Dickens, and he has all the pretense. He pretends to be benevolent, to be caring, to care about women, to care about children, to care about humanity. But he's quite the opposite. Behind the scenes, he wants to squeeze them, squeeze the life out of them, meaning monetarily. And that's Angela Kachurga. That's Bob Moore to me, and our dealings with them. And they have multiple stories that are twisty and turns of the, just misrepresentations. It's pretty sad. But there are ethical journalists. And the one that reported, I believe, Reyes Mata, El Paso Inc. I don't know if it's .com or org. I'm reading that article by memory, because I'm thinking about all these unethical journalists that I've had to deal with. Rose Thayer, right? Rose Thayer from Stars and Stripes. She's so unethical. She's like a twin of Angela Kachurga and Bob Moore. I think she's a twin. But Reyes Mata of El Paso Inc. Wrote the story about Loretta Lynn Hewitt resigning in protest because they were politicizing the Walmart mass shooting. Can you believe it? And she was right, because you know them by their fruit. Judge Medrano has not done one thing, not one thing. And they had a plea deal with the federal government. With the federal case was a plea deal. And not even a mental health evaluation for Patrick Crusius. So, Bill Hicks is up to no good. And he was connected and is connected to the funeral business. The Ortegas, the Rochas Ortegas are connected with the funeral business. The Danea Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia is connected to the funeral business. So you have this commonality. And it's the funeral business, and of course, it's the LDS, the Mormons, the congregation of the LDS congregation there, going back and forth. That is a commonality. And that really narrows down where to look, and it explains a lot of things. Because Tavita Nusa is connected to the funeral business, mortuary affairs. Those that have harassed us and threatened us and stole our identity, reporting false information, going behind our backs to our supporters and telling them lies and, things like this. They're connected to the funeral business, the mortuary affairs business, the graveyard business. And so it all starting to make sense. And you can kind of narrow it down as far as what happened to Richard's remains, which is pretty scary, because they have access to files. That makes sense why they had access to files, access to legal, And you see how they were working together. They were working together, and why they want to cover this up. Because, it makes you wonder, what kind of business are they in? They want people to die because that's how they profit. And then when they die, how are they profiting? Because they never stop there. Are they, what are they doing with these remains? What are they doing with the remains? What are they doing with the identities? Are they messing with the insurance business? How are they funneling this money? Um, it is. It's so heartbreaking. Um, because a normal law-abiding person doesn't even think like this. I would never have even thought like this. I would never even thought that it was possible. And that's how they can take advantage of you. Because you don't think this kind of collusion, that they would be so unethical and immoral, that they could do things like this. That they could take advantage of the funeral business. So it's very evident that there's something going on Bliss Avenue when it comes to the funeral business. And also with Bill Hicks and the funeral business. And that's coming all together. And there's a lot of LLCs and things like that. And, um, it's really narrowing down. You know, um, Getting all the proof, even more and more proof, more and more evidence. And I think it's a big business what they've done. And it's scary because what did they do with the 85,000 missing children? If they're in the funeral business, and it's just, it's just so, it's just so, I can't, nightmarish. And of course, if they're going to do all this, then they're trafficking the weapons and the ammunition, and they're all trying to get a piece of the pie of this criminal activity because the narcotics or whatever. And there's a link on of Bliss Avenue. And it's not just 3905 Bliss Avenue or 3705 Bliss Avenue. There's other homes on Bliss Avenue. And so I'm reaching out tonight because it's not just Bliss Avenue, but something really, really strange happened. At the beginning of this, I've said God's hand is all over this. And years ago, I dreamt of a street called Myrtle Street, Myrtle Avenue, Myrtles. It was really weird. And I thought, what does Myrtle have to do with it? A street called Myrtle. And that's coming back now. That's coming up because where is Hicks's law firm before he was a usurper? On a street named Myrtle. And that connects the Ortegas, which are the Rochas. When it's Belen Rocha, but her mother is an Ortega. And it's her mother's side that's in the funeral business that we know of. And there's more to it. And Danae is part of it too, and Jonathan Ambrose. Um, so it's all coming together. And even though I might sound sad, I'm very grateful. I'm so grateful that we have come this far and that we are putting this all together. It's sad that I have to say it all on a live stream because that puts us in danger. The law enforcement agency has to be driven. There are good people in the agencies, but they have to be driven because there is so much division there. There's so much retaliation. It's like Richard. Richard was in the Army. He was in 143. He was so good. He was so beautiful. But Dallas Hart was also in the 143. And I'm put out that question. Was Jonathan Ambrose in 143? Was Jonathan Ambrose in 143 ADA? Because he's a disabled veteran. He just bought a home for over $400,000 using a VA loan for $400,000. Buying vehicles, lots of vehicles, way over $100,000 in the last 12 months. He's got unexplained money, right? I mean, do disabled veterans make that much money? He has to be able to meet those payments. Does Danae Katzen have that good of a job? Is that their home that they're going to live in? And was he in 143 ADA? Because we know that Richard was continuously, severely retaliated against, and the Field Grade Article 15, that was totally needs to be rescinded because it's just had no weight at all. Nothing. There's nothing behind it except for retaliation. And anyone that knows me knows that I would not just say that I would have evidence. And that's something also that Martin Paredes brought up, that Bob Moore said, I have no evidence. And Patricia Halliday has no evidence. I'm like, you want to make a bet? We have some hard evidence. We have circumstantial evidence, and we have irregularities, and we have piles of it. And he knows it because we've been sharing it. So I think Richard had evidence too, and he was reporting it, and he was continuously being harassed. And it wasn't just from Lieutenant Colonel Roddick, right? That was just, hey, let me destroy him and I'll let everyone else can do the real retaliation. And the same thing with Major General Clem Coward. They facilitated, in my opinion, the real harassment, not unlike what Glennon Oakley Jr. suffered. Very similar to that. And he was found dead in his barracks in April 8th of 2020, and Richard in July of 2020. And they were both whistleblowers. So this is absolutely the orchestrated Walmart mass shooting case. And whatever mortuary affairs was used, whatever funeral homes were used, purchase, all of those people involved, we're reaching out right now and saying, look, it's botched. And if you had any part of it, you need to come forward now, because this is a capital murder case. It's going to be not so nice. And those that handled those bodies, those that covered up the criminal orchestration of the Walmart mass shooting and what happened to Richard, it's all coming to light. And there's going to be accountability. And so come forward or put things in writing. And I wouldn't be afraid. Put things in writing. You might not have good grammar. You might not have good handwriting. It doesn't matter. Put things in writing. Make it a list and come forward. Because we have enough. And Martin Paredes' article is not going to be the last one. So, because the truth is getting out there. And the ethical journalists, they're all about getting the truth out there. And, we have so much evidence now that they absolutely feel confident in reporting this story. So, thank you so much. And we will be back tomorrow, God willing, with more breaking news, right? With more breaking news. But I just wanted to lay that out for today. Thank you so much.